Dr. Lisa Martinez stared at the numbers on her computer screen. She had been working for 18 hours straight, and her eyes burned from the bright light. Coffee cups covered her desk, most of them empty and cold. The underground lab in Nevada was quiet except for the hum of machines and the soft clicking of her keyboard. "This has to work," she whispered to herself. It has to. For 3 years, Lisa had been trying to solve the biggest problem in human history. How do you travel faster than light? Other scientists had tried for decades. They all failed. But Lisa had a different idea. While everyone else tried to bend space like folding paper, she wanted to cut through it. The idea came to her in a dream. What if space wasn't really solid? What if you could make tiny holes in it and step through to somewhere else? Like cutting a door in a wall instead of walking around the building. Jack Peterson walked into the lab carrying 2 fresh cups of coffee. He was the best engineer Lisa knew, and he had been helping her build the strange machine for months. "Still working?" Jack asked, setting a cup next to her computer. "I think I found it," Lisa said. Her voice was shaky with excitement. "The equation that makes it possible." Jack looked at the screen. The math was too hard for him to understand, but he could see that Lisa was excited. "Are you sure?" "Look at this." Lisa pointed to a line of numbers. "If we use enough power, we can make the space around an object unstable. Not bent, but actually torn, like ripping fabric." Amy Walsh came over from her desk across the room. She was the team's math expert, and if anyone could check Lisa's work, it was her. "Show me," Amy said. Lisa explained her idea. Instead of bending space-time like a curve, her drive would create tiny holes that went through higher dimensions. An object could step through these holes and come out somewhere else instantly. Amy studied the equations for 20 minutes. Her face was serious as she worked through each step. Finally, she looked up. "Lisa, this is impossible," Amy said. "But the math is correct," Jack grinned. "So it's impossible math that actually works." "That's the best kind," Lisa laughed. The team spent the next week building a test device. It was small, about the size of a microwave, but it needed enormous amounts of power. They connected it to the lab's main reactor and held their breath. "First test," Lisa announced. "We're going to try to move a steel ball 1 meter." She placed a small metal ball inside the device and sealed the door. Jack powered up the machine while Amy watched the computer readings. "Power at 50%, Jack called out. "Readings look normal," Amy said. "Power at 75%, Jack said. The machine started to vibrate. "Still normal," Amy reported. "Full power," Jack said. There was a bright flash of purple light. The machine stopped vibrating. Lisa opened the door and looked inside. The steel ball was gone. "Where did it go?" Jack asked. Amy pointed to a spot 1 meter away. There. The steel ball was sitting on a table exactly 1 meter from the machine. It had moved through solid air and appeared in the right place. "We did it," Lisa whispered. "We actually did it." But this was just the beginning. Over the next month, they built a bigger version. This one could move objects much farther. They tested it with a probe the size of a small car. "Today, we try something big," Lisa said. "We're going to send our probe to the nearest star." The probe was loaded with cameras and sensors. If everything worked, it would travel 4 light years in just a few hours and send back pictures. The new machine was 10 times bigger than their first test device. It needed so much power that they had to connect it to 3 different reactors. The probe sat in the middle of the machine, waiting. "All systems ready," Jack reported. "Math checks out," Amy confirmed. Lisa took a deep breath. "Begin the test." Jack started the power sequence. This time, the machine didn't just vibrate. It made a deep humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The air around the probe started to shimmer like heat waves. "Power at 90%, Jack called out. The humming got louder. Small objects in the lab started to shake. Full power. There was no flash this time. Instead, the space around the probe seemed to tear open like ripped cloth. Through the tear, they could see stars and darkness. The probe moved forward and disappeared through the hole. Then the tear closed with a sound like thunder. "Probe is gone," Amy said, checking her readings. "Signal lost." They waited for 4 hours. Then Amy's computer started beeping. "Signal detected," she shouted. "The probe is transmitting." Pictures appeared on their screens. Alien stars. A red sun they had never seen before. The probe had traveled to another star system and was sending back proof. "We're the first humans to travel faster than light," Lisa said. She felt tears in her eyes. But something else had happened during their test. Something they didn't know about yet. Far across the galaxy, alien scientists noticed strange readings on their instruments. Gravitational waves were moving through space in patterns they had never seen before. The waves were strong enough to shake planets and disturb star systems. The aliens traced the waves back to their source. A small yellow star with 9 planets. The third planet was blue and green and covered with water. "What are those creatures doing?" asked an alien scientist on a space station 50 light years from Earth. "I don't know," replied his partner. "But they're doing something that could destroy everything." Messages began traveling between alien worlds. Emergency meetings were called. Ancient councils gathered to discuss the new threat. On Earth, Lisa and her team celebrated their success. They had no idea that every major civilization in the galaxy was now watching them with fear. The age of human space travel had begun. But it had also started something much bigger and more dangerous than they could imagine. 6 months after Lisa's successful test, humans had built their first real faster-than-light spaceship. The Terra Nova was beautiful, with smooth white walls and blue lights along its sides. It was as big as a city block and carried a crew of 200 people. Captain Ryan Burke stood on the bridge looking out at the stars. He was a calm man with gray hair who had spent 20 years flying regular spaceships around Earth's solar system. But today was different. Today, he would be the first human to pilot a ship between the stars. "All systems ready, Captain," said Kevin Stone, the ship's chief engineer. Kevin was young but smart, and he understood the new void drive better than anyone except Lisa herself. "Communications are clear," reported Beth Collins from her station. Beth had learned 6 different alien languages in the past month, just in case they met someone out there. "Dr. Martinez, is the drive ready?" Captain Burke asked. Lisa nodded from her position at the science station. She had insisted on coming aboard for this first trip. After all, it was her invention. "Destination is the Alpha Centauri system," Captain Burke announced. 4 light years from Earth. Estimated travel time, 6 hours. Back on Earth, Admiral Nina Harper watched from mission control. She was in charge of all human space activities, and this mission made her nervous. Humans were about to leave there. Solar system for the first time ever. "Terra Nova, you are cleared for departure," Admiral Harper said into her microphone. The void drive powered up with the same deep humming sound they had heard in the lab. Space around the ship began to shimmer and tear. Through the hole, they could see distant stars. "Here we go," Captain Burke said. The Terra Nova moved forward and vanished from Earth's solar system. What the humans didn't know was that their test 6 months ago had been noticed by many alien civilizations. One of these was the Zephyrian Commonwealth, a group of peaceful worlds that traded with each other across the galaxy. Ambassador Veltar was a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms and large silver eyes. He had been watching Earth ever since his people detected the strange gravitational waves. Now he sat in his own ship, hidden behind Earth's moon, waiting to see what the humans would do next. When the Terra Nova disappeared into its void tunnel, Veltar S instruments went wild. The readings showed something that made his blood run cold. The human ship wasn't just traveling through space. It was damaging space itself. By the ancient stars, Veltar whispered. They don't know what they're doing. 6 hours later, the Terra Nova returned from Alpha Centauri. The mission was a complete success. Captain Burke and his crew had taken pictures of alien planets and collected scientific data. Everyone on Earth celebrated, but Veltar knew he had to act quickly. The humans were playing with forces that could destroy entire star systems. It was time for first contact. 3 days later, Veltar's ship appeared above Earth's largest city. It was impossible to miss. A silver disk 2 miles wide that reflected sunlight like a mirror. Admiral Harper was in an emergency meeting within an hour. They're not attacking, she told the world's leaders over video call. The ship is just sitting there. Have they tried to communicate? Asked the president. Yes, ma'am. They're broadcasting on every frequency we know. The message is simple. They want to talk. Beth Collins was brought to Mission Control to help translate. The alien language was musical, like singing, but she had studied it from radio signals her team had been secretly collecting. They say their leader wants to meet with our scientists, Beth reported. Specifically, the people who built our new space drive. Lisa was called to the meeting. When she arrived at Mission Control, she saw Admiral Harper talking to a hologram of the alien ambassador. Veltar was impressive in person. His blue skin had silver patterns that moved like flowing water. His forearms gestured gracefully as he spoke. Dr. Martinez, Admiral Harper said, meet Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Commonwealth. He says he wants to learn about your void drive. Lisa stepped forward. Through Beth's translation, she could speak with the alien directly. Your invention is remarkable, Veltar said, but I must understand how it works. For the safety of everyone, I'd be happy to show you, Lisa replied. She was excited to meet an alien scientist. A demonstration was arranged. The Terra Nova would perform a short jump while Veltar's ship watched and recorded everything. Captain Burke took the Terra Nova to a safe distance from Earth. Veltar's ship followed, its sensors aimed at the human vessel. Beginning void drive test, Captain Burke announced. Lisa activated the drive from the science station. The familiar humming filled the ship. Space began to tear around them. On Veltar's ship, alarms started screaming. Ambassador, his science officer called out. The humans are creating subspace fractures across 12 light years. Veltar watched his instruments in horror. The human ship wasn't just making a small hole in space. It was cracking the foundation of reality itself. The damage was spreading outward like cracks in broken glass. Stop them, Veltar ordered. Signal them to stop immediately. But it was too late. The Terra Nova had already jumped and returned. To the humans, everything had gone perfectly. Excellent test, Captain Burke reported. All systems normal. Veltar's ship approached the Terra Nova. The ambassador requested an immediate private meeting with Dr. Martinez. Your technology, Veltar said when they met, it is far more dangerous than you realize. Dangerous? Lisa was confused. But it works perfectly. Yes, it works. But each time you use it, you damage the structure of space itself. The cracks spread far beyond your ship. If you make them big enough, or use the drive too often, you could tear holes that never close. Lisa felt cold fear creep up her spine. What would happen then? Star systems would be consumed. Planets would disappear. The damage could spread across the entire galaxy. Back on his ship, Veltar composed an urgent message to the Galactic Council. His four hands moved quickly across different control panels. As he wrote, "Emergency report from Ambassador Veltar, Zephyrian Commonwealth. Subject, critical threat from Sol 3 species. The humans have developed FTL technology that creates permanent subspace damage. Immediate council intervention required. This could be a galaxy-ending threat." He sent the message through the fastest communication channels available. Within hours, it would reach the council chambers on Kepler Prime. On Earth, Admiral Harper noticed that Ambassador Veltar seemed nervous after the demonstration. His musical voice had become higher and faster. His silver patterns moved more quickly across his blue skin. "Is everything all right, Ambassador?" she asked. "Yes, of course," Veltar replied, but his large eyes looked worried. "I simply need to discuss your remarkable technology with my people." That night, as Earth celebrated its successful demonstration to an alien species, Veltar's message was causing panic in the highest levels of galactic government. The Galactic Council was about to face the biggest crisis in its 1,000-year history, and the humans who had caused it had no idea what was coming. On the planet Kepler Prime, in the center of the galaxy, stood a building unlike any other. The council hall was made of crystal that changed colors with the light of 3 different suns. Inside, representatives from 47 different worlds gathered for emergency meetings that could decide the fate of entire civilizations. Council President Isara was an ancient being whose people had been traveling between stars for over 10,000 years. Her skin looked like moving starlight, and her voice could speak in frequencies that most species couldn't even hear. Today, she was more worried than she had been in centuries. "We face a crisis," she announced to the assembled representatives. "A young species has developed technology that threatens the stability of space itself." The great chamber fell silent. Representatives from dozens of different worlds looked at each other with concern. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and a few were made of pure energy contained in metal suits. But they all understood the seriousness of what they were hearing. Veltar stood up from his seat. His blue skin was pale with worry as he activated a holographic display. "I have observed the humans of Sol 3 directly," he said. "Their void drive technology tears holes in the fabric of reality. Each use creates damage that spreads across multiple star systems." The hologram showed recordings from the Terra Nova's demonstration. To most species, it looked like normal FTL travel. But the scientific readings told a different story. "The subspace fractures extend 12 light years from their ship," Veltar continued. "If they continue to improve this technology, the damage could become permanent." War Commander Kethrak of the Draknari Empire slammed his armored fist on his desk. The Draknari were a warrior species who had conquered dozens of worlds before joining the council. Kethrak was 8 feet tall, covered in red scales, and had never met a problem he couldn't solve with violence. "The solution is simple," Kethrak growled. "Destroy their world before they destroy ours." "That would make us no better than the threat we're trying to stop," replied Elder Santher of the Centauri Collective. Santher was old even by the standards of his long-lived people. His gray skin was covered in intricate tattoos that told the history of his species. He had been a diplomat for over 300 years. "The humans don't know what they're doing," Santher continued. "They're like children playing with fire. We should teach them, not destroy them." A representative from the ethereal conclave floated forward. The ethereals were beings of pure thought who had given up physical bodies millions of years ago. When they spoke, their words appeared directly in everyone's mind. "The calculations are disturbing," the ethereal communicated. "If the humans increase their drive power by just 50%, they could create a permanent rift. If they double it, the rift could consume their entire star system." President Tisara called for order as arguments broke out across the chamber. Some representatives wanted immediate military action. Others demanded diplomatic contact. A few suggested simply hiding and hoping the humans would destroy themselves before anyone else got hurt. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Lisa Martinez had no idea that her invention was being discussed by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. She was in her lab, working on improvements to the Void Drive with her research assistant Tony Adams and security chief Greg Sullivan. "Look at these power readings," Lisa said excitedly. "If we increase the energy input by 60%, we can triple the range of the drive." Tony, a young scientist fresh out of college, looked at the numbers with admiration. "That would let us reach the other side of the galaxy in just a few days." Greg Sullivan was a former military officer who was supposed to keep the lab secure, but he had become fascinated by the science behind the Void Drive. "What about safety limits?" he asked. "The math says it's perfectly safe," Lisa replied. "The void tunnels are self-stabilizing. The bigger we make them, the more stable they become." She was wrong, but she had no way of knowing that. Human science was thousands of years behind the rest of the galaxy. They understood how to make the Void Drive work, but they didn't understand the long-term consequences. Back on Kepler Prime, the council had been debating for 6 hours. Finally, President Tissara called for a vote on 3 options. "Option 1, she announced, immediate military intervention to stop human FTL research. Kethrak and 12 other representatives raised their hands. Option 2, complete technological quarantine of the Sol system. No contact, no interference. Let them solve their own problems. 8 representatives voted for this option. Option 3, diplomatic contact to guide the humans toward safer technology. 26 representatives raised their hands, including Valtar and Elder Santher. The motion passes, President Tissara declared. We will attempt diplomatic contact with the humans. Elder Santher was chosen to lead the diplomatic mission. His people had successfully negotiated peace treaties with dozens of different species. If anyone could convince the humans to change their technology, it would be him. I will take a full diplomatic convoy, Santher said. We must show the humans that we come in peace, but also that we represent a powerful alliance. I request permission to escort the diplomatic mission, Kethrak said, standing up. For security purposes. Several representatives objected, but President Tissara allowed it. You may position a small fleet at the edge of the Sol system, but you will not enter unless the diplomatic mission is threatened. Kethrak smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Of course, purely for security. As the council session ended, Elder Santher began preparing for the most important diplomatic mission of his career. He selected his best translators, cultural specialists, and scientists. The convoy would include 5 ships, all designed to look peaceful but equipped with powerful defensive systems. What Santher didn't know was that Kethrak was preparing his own fleet. The war commander had convinced his superiors that the humans represented an immediate threat. He would follow the diplomatic convoy with 30 warships, ready to attack at the first sign of trouble. On Earth, Lisa made another breakthrough. Working late into the night, she discovered a way to make the Void Drive even more efficient. Tony, look at this, she called out. If we modify the containment field, we can create permanent void rifts that stay open for hours. Permanent rifts? Tony asked. What would we use those for? Imagine instant travel between star systems, Lisa explained. Like having doorways between different worlds. We could build a network of rifts that connect the entire galaxy. Greg Sullivan felt a chill run down his spine. Something about permanent rifts sounded dangerous, but he couldn't explain why. Maybe we should test this more carefully, he suggested. Don't worry, Lisa said. I've run the calculations 100 times. It's perfectly safe. 3 days later, Elder Sonther's diplomatic convoy left Kepler Prime. The ships were beautiful, with smooth curves and silver hulls that reflected starlight like mirrors. They traveled at normal FTL speeds, taking their time to plan their approach to Earth. One day behind them, Kethruck's war fleet followed in darkness. The Draknari ships were black and angular, designed to strike fear into their enemies. Kethruck sat on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars and planning for war. "War Commander," his tactical officer reported, "our spies confirm that the humans are continuing to improve their void drive technology." "Good," Kethruck replied. "That gives us justification for what comes next." On Earth, Admiral Nina Harper received a message that changed everything. Long-range sensors had detected multiple alien fleets approaching the solar system. Some appeared peaceful, but others looked like warships. "Get me Dr. Martinez immediately," Admiral Harper ordered, "and start preparing our defenses. I think we're about to have visitors." The age of innocence was ending for humanity. Soon they would learn that their greatest achievement might also be their greatest mistake. Elder Sonther's diplomatic convoy appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system, like silver stars against the darkness. His 5 ships moved slowly and carefully, broadcasting peaceful messages in every language they knew. On Earth, President Lavra Kim sat in the emergency meeting room with her top advisors. The room was deep underground, protected by thick concrete and steel. Around the table sat Admiral Nina Harper, Defense Secretary Matt Rodriguez, and Dr. Carol Stevens, the President's science advisor. 5 alien ships moving toward Earth at normal speed, Admiral Harper reported. "They're broadcasting messages of peace, but our translators are still working on the language." "What about the other fleet?" President Kim asked. "Still there, hiding behind Jupiter. We count at least 30 ships, and they look like warships." Defense Secretary Rodriguez leaned forward. He was a former general who had spent his whole career preparing for war. This could be a classic military tactic. "Send diplomats to distract us while the real fleet gets into position." Dr. Stevens shook her head. "The peaceful ships are clearly different from the war fleet. I think we really are dealing with 2 separate groups." President Kim made her decision. "We'll meet with the diplomats, but keep our defenses ready." 6 hours later, Elder Sonther's ship landed at the United Nations building in New York. The alien diplomat was impressive to see in person. His gray skin was covered in moving tattoos that seemed to tell stories. His eyes were large and wise, and when he spoke, his voice was calm and musical. "President Kim," Sonther said through his translator device, "I come representing the Galactic Council. We need to discuss your faster-than-light technology." The meeting took place in the UN's largest conference room. Lisa Martinez had been flown in from Nevada, along with several other scientists. Elder Sonther brought his own science team, including experts who had studied void phenomena for thousands of years. "Your void drive technology is remarkable," Sonther began, "but it is also extremely dangerous. Each time you use it, you damage the structure of space itself." Lisa felt confused. "But our tests show that the void tunnels close completely after use." One of Sonther's scientists activated a holographic display. It showed the space around Earth, but with layers that human instruments couldn't detect. "Look here," the alien scientist explained. "Each time your ships travel, they leave invisible cracks in subspace. These cracks are spreading throughout your solar system." Dr. Stevens studied the display with growing alarm. "You're saying that every time we use FTL travel, we're weakening the fabric of space?" "Exactly," Sonther replied. "And if the cracks become large enough, they could create permanent tears that consume everything around them." Defense Secretary Rodriguez stood up suddenly. "Wait a minute. You're telling us to stop using our most important technology." How do we know this isn't just a trick to keep humanity from exploring the galaxy? Secretary Rodriguez, President Kim said quietly. Please sit down. But Rodriguez was angry. These aliens show up with a war fleet, then tell us our technology is dangerous. It sounds like they're trying to scare us into giving up our only advantage. Elder Santher raised his hands peacefully. We understand your suspicion, but please, let us show you the true danger. At that moment, Dr. Martinez received an urgent message on her phone. It was from her lab in Nevada. I'm sorry, Lisa said, but I need to take this call. It's about our latest test. She stepped outside the conference room and spoke with Tony Adams, who was back at the lab. Dr. Martinez, Tony said excitedly. We did it. The permanent void rift is working perfectly. We can keep a portal open for hours now. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Tony shut down the test immediately. What? But it's working great. Captain Burke is taking the Terra Nova through right now to test the stable portal. Shut it down now, Lisa shouted, but it was too late. In space near Earth's moon, Captain Burke piloted the Terra Nova through, Lisa's newest creation, a permanent void rift that stayed open like a doorway between star systems. The rift was beautiful, swirling with purple and silver light. This is amazing, Burke told his crew. It's like flying through a tunnel of stars. But engineer Steve Parker was watching his instruments with growing worry. Captain, I'm seeing some strange readings. The rift is pulling in debris from around us. Navigator Kelly Wright pointed out the window. Look at those asteroids. Small asteroids near the rift were being drawn toward it, like metal to a magnet. As they touched the edge of the rift, they simply disappeared. The rift is growing, Parker reported. It's feeding on matter and getting bigger. Shut down the void drive, Burke ordered. I'm trying, but it's not responding. The rift has become self-sustaining. Back on Earth, Elder Santher felt his translator device buzzing with emergency alerts. His ship was detecting massive subspace disturbances near Earth's moon. What have you done? He asked Lisa, who had just returned to the conference room. Looking pale. We tested a permanent void rift, Lisa admitted. But something went wrong. Defense Secretary Rodriguez pointed an accusing finger at Santher. This is too convenient. You show up warning us about our technology, and suddenly our test goes wrong. You sabotaged us. We did nothing, Santher protested. This is exactly what we came to prevent. Hidden behind Jupiter, War Commander Kethrak watched the expanding void rift through his ship's sensors. To his military mind, it looked like a weapon test. They're testing a planet-killer weapon while pretending to negotiate, he told his officers. This proves they're hostile. What are our orders, War Commander? His tactical officer asked. Signal a fleet. We attack now, before they can use that weapon against us. 30 Draknari warships left their hiding place behind Jupiter and flew toward Earth at maximum speed. Their black hulls gleamed with weapon systems charging for battle. On Earth, Admiral Harper's defense center exploded with alarms. Admiral, her communications officer shouted. The alien war fleet is moving. They're heading straight for us. Battle stations, Harper ordered. Launch all available ships. Captain Chris Morgan, commander of Earth's newest warship, New Frontier, received the alert in his quarters. Within minutes, he was on his bridge, leading Earth's small but determined defense fleet toward what looked like an invasion. All ships, this is Admiral Harper, came the voice over the radio. We are facing an alien attack force. Protect Earth at all costs. The Terra Nova was still trapped near the growing void rift, which had now consumed dozens of asteroids and was pulling in larger debris. Captain Burke and his crew watched helplessly as Earth's defense fleet and the alien warships moved toward. Each other. We have to stop this, Burke said. This is all a misunderstanding. Engineer Parker looked at his readings. Captain, if we can't shut down this rift soon, it might consume the entire solar system. On the planet's surface, President Kim watched the developing space battle with horror. Elder Santher stood beside her, equally shocked. This was not supposed to happen, Santher said sadly. We came in peace. Can you call off your warships? President Kim asked. They're not ours, Santher replied. They belong to a faction that wanted military action from the beginning. Defense Secretary Rodriguez drew his sidearm and pointed it at the alien diplomat. You planned this whole thing. Secretary Rodriguez, stand down. President Kim ordered. But the damage was done. Earth and the galaxy were now at war, all because of a terrible misunderstanding. And somewhere near the moon, a void rift continued to grow, threatening to consume everything in its path. The next few hours would determine whether humanity survived its first contact with galactic civilization, or whether both species would be destroyed by the very technology that was supposed to bring them together. The space battle erupted around Jupiter as Earth's defense fleet met the charging Draknari warships. Laser beams and plasma bolts lit up the darkness between the planets. Captain Chris Morgan's new frontier led the human ships in a desperate fight against an enemy they didn't understand. Enemy ships are more advanced than ours, Morgan reported to Admiral Harper. But we're not giving up. Near Earth's moon, the void rift continued to grow larger. It had consumed hundreds of asteroids and was now pulling in pieces of space debris from across the solar system. Captain Burke and his crew on the Terra Nova were trapped, unable to escape the rift's pull. The rift is now 3 miles wide. Engineer Steve Parker reported, and it's still growing. Navigator Kelly Wright pointed at her instruments. Captain, if this thing keeps expanding at this rate, it will reach Earth in 6 hours. Burke made a decision that would change everything. Open all communication channels. Broadcast to both fleets. Sir? Parker asked. This whole war started because nobody's talking to each other. Someone needs to stop the fighting before we all get consumed by that thing. Burke's voice went out across space to both the human and Draknari fleets. All ships, this is Captain Burke of the Terra Nova. Stop firing immediately. We have a bigger problem than any war. On the bridge of his flagship, War Commander Kethrak heard the transmission. Human vessel, you will surrender immediately. War Commander. Look at your sensors, Burke replied. That void rift near the moon. It's not a weapon. It's a mistake, and it's going to kill all of us if we don't work together. Kethrak checked his readings. The rift was indeed growing and pulling in matter from across the solar system. More importantly, his scientists confirmed that it was destabilizing space throughout the entire system. Captain Morgan's voice joined the conversation. Draknari fleet, our sensors show the same thing. That rift is the real enemy here. Slowly, the shooting stopped. Ships from both sides held their positions, but the weapons fire ended. On Earth, Dr. Martinez was working frantically. In her lab with Tony Adams, Dan Carter, and Jane Miller. Computer specialist Jane had been running calculations non-stop, trying to find a way to collapse the rift. The void rift is feeding on matter and energy, Lisa explained to her team. Every time it consumes something, it gets stronger and bigger. Can we reverse the process? Asked physicist Dan Carter. I don't know, Lisa admitted. We never planned for this. Our equations didn't predict that the rifts could become self-sustaining. Tony looked up from his computer. Dr. Martinez, I'm getting a communication request from one of the alien ships. Put them through. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and wise. It was Elder Santher, calling from his diplomatic ship. Dr. Martinez, this is Elder Santher. My scientists have been studying your void rift. We may be able to help. Please, Lisa said. We're running out of time. The key is to understand that your rift is not just a hole in space. It has become a living tear in reality itself. To close it, we need to convince it to heal. Lisa was confused. Convince it? It's just a physics phenomenon. Not anymore, Sandhya explained. Your void rifts work by accessing higher dimensions. In those dimensions, space behaves more like a living thing than empty void. Paul Chun, the team's translator who had been monitoring alien communications, suddenly spoke up. Dr. Martinez, I think I understand. The aliens are saying that space can heal itself, like a cut in skin, but only if we give it the right conditions. Working together across the communication link, human and alien scientists began to develop a solution. Lisa provided the technical details of how the void drive worked, while Sandhya's team explained the deeper physics that humans had never understood. We need to create a resonance field that encouraged the rift to collapse, explained one of Sandhya's scientists. Like playing the right music to calm an angry animal. Jane Miller worked with the alien computers to calculate the exact frequency needed. Dan Carter figured out how to modify the Terra Nova's void drive to generate the resonance field instead of opening new rifts. But there was a problem. The Terra Nova was trapped too close to the rift to generate the field safely. If we try this from here, the resonance might tear our ship apart, Engineer Parker warned. Then we need another ship to generate the field from a safe distance. Captain Burke said. War-Commander Kethrak's voice suddenly joined the conversation. My flagship has powerful energy generators. We can create your resonance field. Everyone was surprised. The Draknari commander who had come to attack was now offering to help. Why would you help us? Burke asked. Because, Kethrak replied, if that rift destroys your solar system, the damage will spread across dozens of other systems, including mine. Working together, the human and alien ships formed a plan. Elder Sandhya's diplomatic ship would provide the technical expertise. The Terra Nova would relay signals from inside the rift. Kethrak's warship would generate the resonance field. And Earth's defense fleet would provide additional power if needed. All ships ready, Captain Morgan reported. Beginning resonance field generation, Kethrak announced. The Draknari flagship began to glow with strange energy. Waves of force spread out from the ship toward the void rift. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, the rift's edges began to shimmer and waver. It's working, Parker shouted from the Terra Nova. The rift is starting to collapse. But the process wasn't smooth. The rift fought back, sending out bursts of energy that shook ships across the solar system. Resonance. Field is unstable, Kethrak reported. We need more power. All human ships, divert power to the Draknari vessel. Admiral Harper ordered from Earth. One by one. Earth's defense ships formed a chain, sending their energy to boost Kethrak's resonance field. It was the first time human and alien technology had ever worked together. Slowly, carefully, the void rift began to close. The purple and silver light that had swirled at its edges started to fade. The pull that had been consuming asteroids grew weaker. Rift collapse at 70%, Jane Miller reported. 80%. 90%. With a sound like thunder that somehow carried through the vacuum of space, the void rift snapped closed and disappeared. Cheers went up on ships throughout the solar system. Humans and aliens had worked together to save everyone from destruction. 3 days later, representatives from Earth met with the Galactic Council in a peaceful ceremony. Lisa Martinez stood before the assembled aliens, no longer as an unknown scientist, but as Earth's first representative to the Council's Science Division. The void drive technology will be studied jointly by human and alien scientists, President Desara announced. Together, we will develop safe FTL travel that combines human innovation with galactic wisdom. Captain Burke was chosen to lead humanity's first official interstellar exploration mission. His new ship would use hybrid technology that was both faster and safer than the original Void drive. War Commander Kethrak, surprisingly, became one of Earth's strongest supporters on the Council. Any species brave enough to risk everything for scientific discovery deserves our respect, he declared. Elder Sonther smiled as he watched the ceremony. The crisis that could have destroyed the galaxy had instead brought together two very different species. Humans had learned their greatest strength, their willingness to take risks, needed to be balanced with wisdom and caution. And the galaxy had learned that sometimes the most dangerous discoveries could lead to the most wonderful partnerships. Years later, when children across the galaxy learned about the day humans almost tore apart reality itself, they also learned about the day that courage and wisdom worked together to heal the damage and build something better than either species could have achieved alone.
The sky above Earth's outer defense station turned an unusual shade of purple as space itself seemed to tear open. Captain Alex Murphy stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force battleship Vigilant, his eyes fixed on the main screen. His hands gripped the edge of the command console until his knuckles turned white. "What am I looking at, Lieutenant?" he asked, his voice steady despite the dread building in his chest. Lieutenant Carol Wright worked quickly at her station, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "Sir, sensors indicate multiple ships emerging from the anomaly. Configuration unknown. Size massive." The tear in space widened, and through it came the first of many ships. Their hulls were dark gray with red markings that resembled ancient runes. Each vessel was shaped like an arrowhead, sharp and clearly designed for war. "Open a channel," Murphy ordered. "All frequencies." "Channel open, sir." Murphy cleared his throat. "This is Captain Alex Murphy of the Earth Defense Force vessel Vigilant. You have entered human-controlled space. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose." The screen remained blank for 30 seconds before flickering to life. The image that appeared made several crew members gasp. A reptilian face filled the screen, scales the color of burnished copper, yellow eyes with vertical pupils, and a mouth filled with teeth that looked sharp enough to tear through metal. "Human vessel," the creature spoke, its voice deep and rumbling. "I am Scout Commander Vexator of the Draconian Armada. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for integration into the Empire. Consider this meeting your first and final warning." Murphy maintained his composure. "Commander Vexator, we welcome peaceful contact with new species, but we do not recognize any Empire's authority over human space. I suggest we arrange for diplomatic talks." The Draconian made a sound that might have been laughter. "Diplomacy is for equals, human. The Draconians have ruled this sector of the galaxy for 10,000 years. Your kind has barely left its cradle world." The alien leaned closer to the screen. "Tell your leaders that Commander Zarket of the Imperial Armada will arrive within your week. Prepare for his arrival." The screen went dark before Murphy could respond. "Sir," Wright said, her voice shaking slightly, "more ships are coming through the anomaly, hundreds of them." Murphy turned to his communications officer. "Contact Earth Command immediately. Priority Alpha." 3 days later, the grand meeting. Hall of the United Earth Government was filled to capacity. Representatives from all human colonies had gathered to hear the report from Ambassador Diane Powell, who had just returned from her meeting with the Draconian commander. Admiral Olivia Martinez stood at the back of the room, her gray uniform crisp and perfect, her face betraying no emotion as Powell approached the podium. Powell looked exhausted. Her normally neat brown hair was disheveled, and her eyes were rimmed with red. She adjusted the microphone and took a deep breath. "The diplomatic mission has failed," she said simply. "The Draconians are not interested in negotiations or peaceful coexistence. Commander Zarket delivered an ultimatum. Earth and all human colonies have 30 days to prepare for integration into the Draconian Empire, or face extinction. The room erupted in shouts and questions. The president raised his hands for silence. Integration? He asked. What exactly does that mean? Powell's expression darkened. Based on information provided by the commander and our observations of their treatment of other species, integration means the end of human self-governance. They would take control of our military, our resources, and our people. Resistance would be met with force. A colonial representative stood up. What about our defense forces? Surely we can fight. Admiral Martinez stepped forward. The Draconian Armada consists of over 3,000 warships, each more advanced than our best vessels. A direct confrontation would be costly. The word costly hung in the air. Everyone understood what she meant. Suicide. Then what options do we have? The president asked. Before anyone could answer, the doors at the back of the hall opened. A man in a rumpled lab coat walked in, ignoring the security officers who tried to stop him. He was tall and thin, with wild gray hair and intense blue eyes. We have one option, the man said, his voice carrying across the now silent hall. The president frowned. Dr. Frank Harrison, this is a closed meeting. Harrison ignored the rebuke. Mr. President, members of the council, I've been leading a research team at the Europa facility for the past 5 years. We've been working on a theoretical weapon system that could give us a chance against the Draconians. Martinez narrowed her eyes. The quantum displacement project? It's nowhere near ready for deployment. It will be, Harrison insisted. If you give my team everything we need, we can have a prototype ready within 3 weeks. The president looked to Admiral Martinez. Is this possible? Martinez hesitated. The science is sound but untested, and even if it works as theorized, the ethical implications are significant. Harrison stepped closer to the president's desk. The Draconians have given us 30 days to prepare for slavery. I'm offering you a chance to save humanity. Yes, there are ethical questions, but are they more important than our survival? The president looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the representatives from Earth's colonies, places that would be the first to fall if the Draconians attacked. Dr. Harrison, you have your resources. Admiral Martinez, I want you to coordinate with Dr. Harrison's team. Buy us time with the Draconians. Make them think we're preparing to surrender while Harrison's team works. Martinez nodded sharply. Yes, sir. As the meeting broke up, Martinez approached Harrison. Your weapon. If it works, what exactly will it do to the Draconians? Harrison's expression was grim. If it works as designed, it will remove them from our reality entirely. They won't be destroyed, not exactly. They'll be somewhere else. And if it doesn't work? Harrison met her gaze steadily. Then we'll need to have our surrender terms ready. Martinez looked out the window at the night sky, where somewhere beyond the stars the largest armada the galaxy had ever seen was gathering. Get it done, Doctor, she said quietly. Whatever it takes. 3 weeks passed quickly. The outer colonies fell one by one as the Draconian Armada moved methodically through human space. Lieutenant John Reeves piloted his stealth ship between asteroid belts, keeping well away from Draconian patrol routes. His vessel, the Shadow, was the smallest ship in Earth's fleet but also the hardest to detect. Reeves adjusted his ship's systems to absorb all emissions. Even a tiny heat signature could give him away. Through the viewing port, he watched as a massive Draconian battleship hovered over New Haven Colony. The once peaceful settlement was now surrounded by alien structures. Computer record all visual data, Reeves whispered, though there was no need for quiet in the vacuum of his ship. Old habits from stealth missions died hard. The Draconians moved with military precision as they set up weapon platforms around the colony's main buildings. Humans were being herded into groups, scanned, and then directed to different areas. Some were taken to work in the fields, others to the mines. The strongest were loaded onto ships. Reeves swallowed hard and focused on his job. Admiral Martinez needed this intelligence. He carefully maneuvered his ship into position to record the Draconian command center. A warning light flashed. A patrol ship was heading his way. Reeves held his breath as he activated the ship's full stealth systems. The shadow went completely dark. For 30 seconds he didn't move, didn't breathe, as the Draconian vessel passed within 50 meters of his position. Once it was gone, Reeves set course for Earth. What he had seen confirmed their worst fears. The Draconians weren't just conquering, they were harvesting humans as resources. Back on Earth, panic spread across cities worldwide. The government tried to maintain calm, but news of the outer colony's fall leaked to the public. Militia groups, formed in many countries, training with whatever weapons they could find. In North America, a former Marine named George Ward led the largest of these groups. "They'll come for Earth last," Ward told his followers as they practiced shooting in an abandoned warehouse. "That gives us time to prepare." A young woman lowered her rifle. "Prepare for what? You've seen the videos. Their ships are massive. What can we do against that?" Ward smiled grimly. "We can make them pay for every inch they take. Humans don't surrender easily." On Europa, Jupiter's icy moon, Dr. Frank Harrison hadn't slept in days. The research facility was buried 2 kilometers beneath the surface, hidden from Draconian scanners. His team worked around the clock, fueled by fear and determination. Harrison stood before a large device that filled the center of the main lab. It resembled a metal sphere surrounded by rings that slowly rotated in different directions. Blue energy pulsed between the rings. "We're ready for the 7th test," he announced. His assistant, engineer Susan Miller, looked up from her console. Her red hair was tied back in a messy ponytail and dark circles shadowed her eyes. "The power couplings are at maximum," she said. "If this doesn't work, we'll need to completely rebuild the containment field." Harrison nodded. "Begin the test." Miller activated the device. The rings spun faster and the blue energy grew brighter. In a sealed chamber connected to the main device, a piece of Draconian technology they had recovered from a damaged scout ship sat on a platform. The energy field extended from the sphere, surrounding the alien object. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the object began to shimmer and fade. Within seconds, it vanished completely. The team erupted in cheers, but Miller's expression remained serious as she studied the readings on her screen. "It worked," she said, "but there's a problem. The quantum field doesn't discriminate between Draconian and human technology. If we deploy this weapon, it could affect our ships too." Harrison's face fell. "How close does a ship need to be to get caught in the field?" "Based on these readings, anything within 50 kilometers would be affected," Miller answered. "We need a way to protect our own vessels." Before Harrison could respond, an alarm blared throughout the facility. A security officer rushed into the lab. "Doctor, we've detected Draconian ships entering Jupiter's orbit," he reported. "They've changed course directly toward Europa." Harrison's blood ran cold. "How did they find us?" "They captured a supply ship 3 days ago," the officer explained. "It had information about unusual activity on Europa." "How long do we have?" 6 hours at most before they're in position to attack." Harrison turned to his team. "Pack up everything, we're evacuating. The ghost weapon goes first." Commander Patricia Daniels piloted her shuttle toward the hidden Europa facility. Her mission was simple but crucial: extract Harrison's team and their weapon prototype before the Draconians arrived. "Europa base, this is Rescue 1, she radioed. "We're approaching your position. Prepare for emergency evacuation." She guided her ship through a narrow ice canyon, staying close to the surface to avoid detection. Behind her shuttle came 5 more, each designed to carry people and equipment. The ground below suddenly opened, revealing a hidden hangar. Daniels landed her shuttle as teams of scientists rushed to load equipment. Dr. Harrison approached her as she exited the shuttle. "Commander, thank you for coming." "Thank me when we're safely away," she replied. "Is that the weapon?" She pointed to the device being carefully loaded onto the largest shuttle. "Yes, it works, Commander. It can make the Draconians disappear." "Then let's make sure it gets back to Earth." Daniels organized the evacuation with military efficiency. Scientists and equipment were assigned to specific shuttles. The ghost weapon was secured with special harnesses. As the last of the equipment was loaded, the facility's sensors detected draconian ships entering Europa's atmosphere. "They're early," Daniel said. "Everyone on board now." The 6 shuttles lifted off from the hangar, staying close to the surface of Europa. They would circle around to the far side of the moon, using its mass to shield them from draconian sensors until they could rendezvous with a waiting stealth transport. Daniels watched through her viewport as draconian bombers appeared on the horizon, heading straight for the now empty facility. The aliens would find nothing but an abandoned base. The shuttles slipped away into space just as the first bombs fell on the facility. The weapon that could save humanity was safely on its way to Earth. But time was running out. Only 1 week remained before the draconian deadline. 1 week remained before the draconian deadline. From the outside, Earth appeared to be preparing for surrender. White flags flew in major cities. Military vessels returned to dock. Government broadcasts urged calm and cooperation. But deep beneath, the North American Rocky Mountains inside the most secure facility on Earth, a different plan was taking shape. Admiral Olivia Martinez stood before a 3-dimensional map showing the positions of all draconian ships. Red dots clustered around the outer colonies with a massive concentration forming near Mars. At this rate, the full armada would reach Earth in exactly 6 days. Operation Phantom is now in effect, Martinez announced to the room full of military leaders and scientists. "Dr. Harrison, please brief the team on current status." Harrison stepped forward. He looked better than he had on Europa. He'd finally gotten some sleep, but stress still lined his face. "The ghost weapon works," he said simply. "We've solved the discrimination problem. Thanks to Engineer Miller's breakthrough, we can now protect our ships from the quantum field effect." Miller, standing nearby, nodded. She had spent 3 days without sleep to develop a shield that would protect human technology from the weapon's effects. "The modified weapon creates a quantum disruption field," Harrison continued. "When this field touches draconian ships, it will sever the connection between their physical matter and our dimension. In simple terms, they'll be phased into a parallel reality." A general raised his hand. "Are we killing them?" Harrison shook his head. "No. They'll continue to exist, just not in our universe. They'll be somewhere else." "And they can't come back?" Martinez asked. "Not without technology far more advanced than what they currently possess," Harrison assured her. Martinez pointed to the map. "We'll deploy the weapon using these 5 cargo ships." 5 blue dots appeared on the display. Each has been retrofitted to carry 1 ghost device. They'll position themselves around the draconian fleet here. She indicated a point near Mars orbit. "Who's going to pilot these ships?" someone asked. "We have volunteers," Martinez replied quietly. "They understand the risks." Captain Kyle Bennett sat alone in his quarters aboard the cargo ship Horizon. Unlike a military vessel, the Horizon looked ordinary, the kind of ship that transported food and supplies between colonies. No one looking at it would guess it carried the most powerful weapon humans had ever created. Bennett opened a small box on his desk and touched the photo inside, his wife and son smiling back at him. He'd recorded a message for them earlier, explaining why he had volunteered for this mission. He hoped they would understand. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. He closed the box and called, "Enter." Dr. Harrison stepped into the small cabin. "Captain, we're ready to install the final components of the ghost device in your cargo hold." Bennett nodded. "Will it hurt when the device activates?" Harrison looked uncomfortable. "We don't know for certain. Test subjects disappeared too quickly to record any data on their experience." Bennett appreciated the honesty. "Tell me again how this works. In simple terms." Harrison sat down across from Bennett. "Every object exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, but we only experience one. The ghost weapon adjusts quantum frequencies to push objects fully into a parallel dimension. They still exist, but not in our reality. And there's no way back? Not without the exact frequency key to reverse the process." And we're certainly not giving that to the Draconians. Bennett was silent for a moment. You know, I fought in 3 colonial conflicts, killed people. But this, removing an entire species from existence, it feels different. Not the entire species, Harrison corrected. Just their armada. And remember what they've already done to our colonies. Bennett thought of the reports. Humans being sorted like cattle, the strongest taken for labor, families separated. I know. I'm not backing out. I just needed to say it out loud. Harrison nodded. Your concerns are valid, Captain. If there were any other way. There isn't, Bennett finished. Let's get your device installed. On the Draconian command ship, Commander Sarkett reviewed the final invasion plans. His massive form dominated the bridge, his copper scales gleaming under the ship's lights. Lesser Draconians kept their distance, eyes lowered in submission. The humans appear to be surrendering, his second-in-command reported. Their military vessels have returned to orbit. Broadcasts indicate they are preparing for integration. Sarkett made a dismissive gesture with his clawed hand. Deception. Humans are known for their trickery. What evidence do you have, Commander? Sarkett activated a display showing 5 cargo ships leaving Earth. These vessels, they claim to be evacuation ships for human leaders, but their course makes no sense. They're heading toward our fleet, not away from it. Perhaps they come to formally surrender. Perhaps. Sarkett didn't sound convinced. Monitor them closely and bring the armada to full battle readiness. I want all 3,000 ships in formation when we reach Earth. The humans will witness the full might of the Draconian Empire before they kneel. Back on Earth, teams worked frantically to finish the preparations. In a small conference room, Martinez briefed the president and his cabinet on the plan. The cargo ships will reach their positions in 36 hours, she explained. Once in place, they'll activate the ghost devices simultaneously. And if it doesn't work? The president asked. Martinez's expression remained professional. Then, the Draconians reach Earth in 6 days, and we fight with everything we have. The president looked around the table at the grim faces of his advisors. And if it does work, what kind of people does that make us? An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Finally, Harrison spoke up. It makes us survivors, Mr. President. The Draconians gave us no choice. Integration means the end of human freedom. They've done it to a dozen other species already. We're not killing them, Martinez added. Just removing them from our reality. The president closed his eyes briefly. Proceed with Operation Phantom, and may whatever God is watching understand why we had to do this. As the meeting ended, Harrison approached Martinez privately. The cargo ships are reporting Draconian vessels shadowing them. They suspect something. Martinez's jaw tightened. Tell the captains to maintain course and act normal. Everything depends on them reaching their positions. Harrison nodded. Captain Bennett reports his ghost device is fully operational. The others will be ready within 12 hours. Then we're on schedule, Martinez said. The largest armada ever, assembled, is about to learn why humans should never be cornered. As she walked away, Harrison looked out a window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, 5 brave crews were carrying humanity's last hope toward an enemy that outnumbered them, 1,000 to 1. The next day would determine whether humans became slaves or saved themselves through the most audacious plan in history. The day of the deadline arrived. Earth cities were quiet, streets nearly empty as people stayed in their homes. Many prayed, others held their loved ones close. All waited. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Martinez watched as the massive Draconian armada moved into its final formation. On the display, over 3,000 red dots arranged themselves in a pattern that reminded her of an ancient arrowhead pointed directly at Earth. They're right on schedule, she said quietly. Behind her, Dr. Harrison and Engineer Miller monitored the status of the 5 ghost carrier ships. Each blue dot on their screen had reached its assigned position around the outer edges of the Draconian formation. Ghost carriers report ready, Miller announced. All devices show green status. The president entered the command center, followed by his security detail and key cabinet members. His face was grim as he took his place beside Martinez. "Admiral, are we ready?" Martinez nodded. "Yes, sir. The Draconians are in position. Our ghost carriers are in place. We're waiting for your order." The president looked at the display, at the overwhelming number of enemy ships compared to their 5 carriers. "Show me the captains." 5 screens lit up, showing the faces of the cargo ship captains. Captain Bennett of the Horizon was in the center screen. "Captains," the president said, "on behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I thank you for your courage. Is there anything you need before we proceed?" Bennett spoke for the group. "Just your permission to begin, Mr. President. The Draconians are starting to pay too much attention to our ships. We need to act now." The president took a deep breath. "You have permission to activate the ghost devices. Good luck." Bennett nodded. "Thank you, sir." He turned to someone off-screen. "Begin activation sequence." On all 5 carriers, crews worked quickly to power up the ghost devices. Inside each ship's cargo hold, the spherical weapons hummed to life, their rings beginning to spin. Dr. Harrison stepped up to the main console. "I'll talk you through what's happening," he told the president and the others in the command center. On the main screen, a simulation showed the expected progression of events. The ghost devices create a quantum field that expands outward from each carrier at approximately 50 kilometers per minute. When these fields touch a Draconian ship, they'll disrupt the quantum signature that keeps the ship anchored to our reality. "In simple terms?" the president asked. "They'll fade away," Harrison said, "first becoming transparent, then disappearing completely." On the displays showing the carriers, blue light began to emanate from each ship, expanding outward in perfectly spherical patterns. "Energy fields expanding," Miller reported. "All 5 carriers report nominal operation." Martinez watched as the blue fields grew larger on the tactical display, slowly approaching the edges of the Draconian formation. On the Draconian command ship, alarms blared. Commander Zarkett stormed onto the bridge, his tail lashing with anger. "Report," he demanded. His science officer worked frantically at a console. "Unknown energy fields detected around the human cargo vessels. The fields are expanding toward our formation." Zarkett hissed. "I knew it was a trap. Target those ships and fire immediately." "All weapons locked on targets," the weapons officer confirmed. Firing. Green beams of energy shot out from dozens of Draconian warships, streaking toward the core, 5 human cargo vessels. In the Earth Command Center, alerts flashed across the screens. "The Draconians are firing on our carriers," Miller reported, her voice tense. On the tactical display, green lines connected several red dots to the blue dots representing the ghost carriers. "Carriers report shields holding," a technician called out. Ghost fields continuing to expand. They watched as the blue spheres grew larger, finally reaching the first Draconian ships at the edges of their formation. "Contact," Harrison said, his voice barely above a whisper. On the screen showing Captain Bennett's bridge, they could see him watching his own display intently. "It's working," Bennett reported. "The Draconian ships are beginning to phase out." Zarkett couldn't believe what his eyes were showing him. The ships at the edge of his formation were changing, their solid hulls becoming transparent, like ghosts. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Unknown, Commander," his science officer replied, panic evident in his voice. "The energy field is altering the quantum structure of our ships. They're being shifted out of phase with normal space." "Impossible." Zarkett slammed his fist on the console. "All ships, fire everything you have at those human vessels. Now." The intensity of the Draconian attack increased dramatically. The ghost carrier's shields began to fail under the assault. "Carrier 3 reports shield failure," Miller announced. "Hull breaches on multiple decks." On the screen, they could see the captain of Carrier 3, a woman named Lisa Winters, bracing herself as her ship shook violently around her. "Ghost. Device still operational," Winters reported through the static. "Field continuing to expand. We'll hold as long as we can." The blue fields kept growing, enveloping more and more Draconian ships. The red dots on the tactical display began to fade and disappear one by one, then in groups, then in whole sections. Carrier 5 reports complete shield failure, Miller said. They're taking heavy damage. On Captain Bennett's screen, they could see him making a difficult decision. Admiral, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos on his bridge. My ship won't last much longer. I'm initiating emergency activation. Martinez stepped forward. Bennett, emergency activation will consume your ship as well. Get your crew to the escape pods. Bennett shook his head. No time, Admiral. The Draconians are concentrating fire on us. If my ghost device goes down, the field will collapse before reaching the command ship. He looked directly at the camera. Tell my family I love them. Before Martinez could respond, Bennett cut the communication. On the tactical display, his carrier's blue dot suddenly pulsed brightly, and its field expanded at triple speed. What did he do? The president asked. Harrison's face was grim. Emergency activation overloads the ghost device, causing an immediate field expansion. It's not survivable for the carrier crew. They watched in silence as Bennett's sacrifice accelerated. The expanded field rushed toward the center of the Draconian formation, engulfing hundreds of ships at once. Zarket watched in horror as his mighty armada disappeared around him, ship after ship fading from existence. He could still communicate with them momentarily as they phased out, their terrified reports confirming they still existed somewhere but not here, not in normal space. All remaining ships, he commanded, retreat immediately, get away from those energy fields. But it was too late. The blue field from Bennett's carrier reached the command ship. Zarket felt a strange tingling sensation as the field passed through the hull. He looked down at his clawed hand and saw it becoming transparent. No, he roared, but his voice sounded distant even to his own ears. This is impossible. Humans cannot. His words faded to nothing as his ship, and then he himself, phased completely, out of normal space. In the Earth Command Center, they watched as the last of the red dots faded from the tactical display. Where minutes before there had been over 3,000 Draconian warships, now there was nothing but empty space, all. Draconian ships have been phased out, Miller reported, her voice filled with disbelief. The entire armada is gone. A cheer began to build in the command center, but Martinez raised her hand for silence. Status of our carriers? She asked. Miller checked her displays. Carriers 1, 2, and 4 report success. Their ghost devices are powering down carriers 3 and 5. She paused. No response from carriers 3 and 5. And carrier 5's energy signature is gone. The celebration died before it began. The president bowed his head briefly. We've won, he said quietly. But the cost was high. Martinez looked at the now empty tactical display. The entire Draconian armada, she said in wonder. Over 3,000 ships, gone without a trace. Dr. Harrison nodded solemnly. And humanity will never forget that humans were behind it. 3 months passed since the day the Draconian armada vanished. Earth slowly returned to normal life, though normal had a new meaning now. Humanity knew they were not alone in the galaxy, and that knowledge changed everything. Admiral Martinez stood at the window of her office in the rebuilt defense headquarters. Outside, workers were constructing a memorial to those lost during what people now called the Draconian crisis. The names of the ghost carrier crews were being carved into stone, with Captain Bennett's name at the top. Her computer chimed, announcing a visitor. Enter, she called. Dr. Harrison walked in, looking much healthier than when she had last seen him. The dark circles under his eyes were gone, and he had gained back some of the weight he had lost during those desperate weeks. Admiral, he greeted her. Thank you for seeing me. Of course, Frank. They had moved to first names after saving the world together. What brings you here? I thought you were busy with your new research facility. Harrison nodded. I am, but I've discovered something you need to know. He placed a data pad on her desk. We've been monitoring the displacement zone, the area where the Draconian fleet vanished. Martinez picked up the pad and studied the readings. What am I looking at? Energy spikes, Harrison explained. They're faint but regular, and they match draconian communication frequencies. Martinez looked up sharply. They're communicating from the other dimension? Not exactly communicating, Harrison said. It's more like echoes. Imagine shouting in a canyon. What we're detecting are the echoes of their communications bleeding through the dimensional barrier. Can they come back? Martinez asked the question that had haunted her for months. Harrison sighed. Theoretically, yes, but they would need technology far beyond what they had when we phased them out. It would take them centuries to develop it, if they ever do. Martinez set down the pad. Keep monitoring them. I want to know if those energy spikes get stronger. There's more, Harrison said. Ships passing near the displacement zone have reported hearing strange transmissions. Most are just static, but occasionally there are words. What kind of words? Threats mostly, promises of revenge. Harrison looked uncomfortable. The crews are getting spooked? Martinez walked back to the window. We'll restrict civilian travel through that sector. Issue a navigation warning about radiation or something similar. That's not all I came to tell you, Harrison said. We've been contacted by 3 alien civilizations. This news surprised Martinez. Friendly? Cautiously friendly, Harrison replied. They were all under draconian control. When the Armada disappeared, they gained their freedom. They want to know how we did it. And what have you told them? Nothing yet. That's a decision above my pay grade. Martinez smiled slightly. Mine too. I'll inform the president. He'll want to meet with them. Harrison nodded. They're sending representatives. They should arrive within the month. He hesitated. There's one more thing. Engineer Miller has a theory about the displacement. Go on. She believes the dimensional barrier is thinning in certain areas. Nothing dangerous, he added quickly, seeing Martinez's expression. But it might be possible to communicate more directly with the displaced Draconians. Why would we want to do that? Harrison looked her in the eye. Because not all Draconians were part of the Armada. There are civilians, colonies, even factions that oppose the Empire's expansion. They might be willing to help us ensure the Armada never finds a way back. Martinez considered this. Set up a secure facility for the research. But move carefully, Frank. We don't want to accidentally give them a way back. After Harrison left, Martinez turned back to the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the memorial construction site. She thought about Captain Bennett and his final message to his family. She had delivered it personally, a recording of a brave man explaining why he had to sacrifice himself. On the other side of the world, in what was once the Australian outback, Susan Miller stood in a new research facility. Around her, dozens of scientists worked at stations monitoring the dimensional barrier. On her main screen, strange readings appeared, fluctuations in the barrier that separated normal space from the dimension where the Draconians now existed. You recording this? She asked her assistant. Yes, ma'am, it's the 3rd fluctuation this week. Miller studied the patterns. They're trying to communicate. Should we report this to Dr. Harrison? Miller nodded. Yes, but first let's see if we can clean up the signal. She adjusted her equipment, filtering out background noise. Slowly, a pattern emerged from the static. Not words, but a repeating sequence of pulses. It's a code, she realized. A simple binary sequence. Her assistant looked worried. What does it say? Miller worked quickly, translating the pulses into text. When she finished, she stared at the result for a long moment. It says, "We are still here. We are waiting. We will return." In a quiet neighborhood far from any military base, John Reeves sat on his porch watching his children play in the yard. After his reconnaissance missions during the crisis, he had been offered a promotion, but he had chosen to retire instead. He had seen enough of war. His wife brought him a drink. "You're thinking about it again, aren't you?" she asked. Reeves nodded. "The anniversary is coming up next week. They want me to speak at the memorial dedication." "Will you do it?" I think I have to. He looked up at the evening sky where the first stars were becoming visible. They deserve to be remembered. His wife followed his gaze. Do you think they're really gone? The Draconians? Reeves took a sip of his drink. Nothing's ever really gone, just somewhere else. He had never told her about the strange transmission he had picked up during his final mission, a fragmented Draconian message that had come through after the fleet had vanished. A message that had sounded almost like a promise. In the presidency office, plans were being made for the first official contact with the 3 alien civilizations that had reached out to humanity. Ambassadors were being selected, protocols developed. They're calling us liberators, an advisor told the president. They want to form an alliance. The president looked thoughtful. What do they want from us? Protection, mainly. They fear the remaining Draconian colonies might try to rebuild the empire. And what do we want from them? Technology, star charts, cultural exchange, but mainly information about any remaining Draconian forces. The president nodded. Arrange the meeting. It's time humanity took its place among the stars. Deep in space, near where the Draconian armada had vanished, a small research vessel drifted silently. Its mission was to monitor the displacement zone and report any unusual activity. The lone crew member, a young scientist named Peter Clark, was the first to notice the strange readings. The dimensional barrier was fluctuating in a new pattern, almost as if something were pressing against it from the other side. He sent an urgent message to Earth. Dimensional disturbance detected. Barrier integrity at 99.7% and dropping slowly. Recommend immediate investigation. As he waited for a response, Clark stared out at the apparently empty space. To normalize, there was nothing there. But his instruments told a different story. Something was happening at the quantum level. Something that might one day allow the Draconians to find their way back. But humanity would be waiting. And they would be ready. On Earth, life continued. Children were born, people fell in love, cities were rebuilt. And in research facilities around the world, scientists worked to understand the weapon they had created and the door between dimensions they had opened. The Draconian armada had disappeared without a trace. Humans were behind it, and humans would ensure they never returned.